morning, everybody. Thank you, Hans, for the introduction. Nice to see a few friendly faces in the room, and looking forward to meeting some of you in breakouts later on. It's nice to start the day with karaoke. I normally end a good day with karaoke, not start one, so thank you for that. And a karaoke classic at that as well. I'm not going to talk to you about the Wazoku business today. I'm just get up here and talk to you about the joy of software and how it can make us all innovative. What I am going to talk to you guys about is as the very uncatchy title of Empowering Employees to be Intrapreneurs. I don't really know whether I love the word intrapreneurship or not, sorry Hans, but I think, and that certainly when mixed with innovation can start to wander into some realms of uncertainty and other things. So I'm going to talk to you about our concepts of everyday innovation with a blending of intrapreneurship and a blending of several other important topics within the realm of how can we do this at scale and how can we create innovators, entrepreneurs, enable ideation to happen across the scale, at scale within our organizations. That is a topic that we call everyday innovation, and I want to just sort of bring that to life for you guys a little bit as we wander through all of this. So Hans gave me a really quick introduction. As he said, I started with Wazoku some years back, and we are a global business headquartered out of London, but working with some really great innovative organizations around the planet, and very privileged to have done so from a fairly humble base not too many eons ago. As he said, I'm also quite lucky that I've recently been invited to help drive a whole series of other entrepreneurial activities, mostly through the business school, but it's actually by proxy of having been doing this in London for the last little while as well now, and being part of a pretty successful incubator in London. My passion is helping people turn ideas into reality. Wazoku does a little bit of that, but I get to do others of that in my free time as well. And there's several other things up there that I like to get my teeth into as we go. The world of innovation, as I said, is a little bit of an opaque one, and one that I wrestle with as a topic. This is not my quote. It's a good friend of mine's quote, whose name I have removed, but some of you probably do know him. And it resonates very strongly with me. It appears in stuff that we write and stuff that we put out there, and is a topic from a book that he's putting out soon. I won't read it, because I'll all have, because I can hear the giggles. But it is, I think, probably true. Certainly in terms of some of the things that we've been picking on and unearthing as an organization for the last little while. So I think we're still here. I think actually we're okay at innovation as businesses, and there's some great brands in the room today from the attendee list that's up in Hans' platform and other things. Some of you do innovation pretty well, and congratulations for that. We're still failing miserably for the amount of time, money, effort, brain power, resources that we put into this weird and wonderful world of innovation, and we're still sort of stood staring at the same little thing, trying to work our way around a maze that frankly is getting more and more and more and more complicated around us, because the world is getting more and more complicated around us. So for people that turn up to work for you every single day, your employees, or however you choose to term them, for the guys that run the businesses, for your really important managers that are the gatekeepers to all these things around innovation and change and whatever else it might be, they are probably more exciting times than we've ever lived in before. And on the flip side of that, they're probably the more challenging times than we've ever lived in ever before as well. We know that, and I could have put any number of logos up here as we went through this, giants can fall and giants have fallen, and giants will continue to fall. And probably if we spin this again in 20 years' time, some of you won't work for the companies that you work for right now, because they may not be around either. And so there is a real need for us to do things a little bit differently. And again, this is not the hyperbole that you guys want to hear. I know, because it's rehashed and rehashed. And so I'm not going to focus on that. I just want to make the point that we do need to start doing things differently. And that's why this conversation is important. Whether it's intrapreneurship, whether it's innovation, whether it's everyday innovation, or whatever it is, I think it is time that we start to try and change the conversation a little bit. And where I want to change the conversation from is less talking about innovation and more about trying to execute on some of the things that we can do, and trying to change some of the language that we have around innovation as we go forward as well. So that's kind of what I'm going to dig into. So we launched the concept of everyday innovation but a few weeks ago. It's something that we sort of had in the DNA of our organization for quite some time. And the the underpinnings of the ethos, as I said earlier, is how can we make entrepreneurs, how can we make innovators, how can we make whatever we want to call it, how can we enable innovation to not be something that we talk about doing, but is actually the byproduct of the fact that we're an exceptional organization. It is something that people turn up to work to do. They turn up to work, and by the very nature of the fact that they work in a world-class organization, innovation happens. And it happens at grassroots levels in the business. It happens in the innovation labs that we set up, because we should still have them. It happens in the R&D centers. It happens because we buy great businesses. All of those things should still happen. I just think that it needs to happen in a much more organic and natural way, rather than the fairly forced way that it happens right now. So we talk less about doing it, and we can just get on with it as an organization. That's very idealistic, and it's not like I'm going to stand up here and give you all of the wonderful answers of how do we do that. But I'm going to dig through some of the reasons why we absolutely must get there. So interestingly, and building on the people bit that we just heard about, I think the driver for innovation and some of the how do we engage leadership and others in this organization, in our organizations, in coming on this journey with us, are going to be not just about the need to change in ever-changing times and this overly worn mantra of innovate or die, or whatever others you like to use. It's actually going to flip into talent, and how are we as organizations getting the most out of the people that work for us? How are we attracting the best people into our businesses? How are we putting forward the auspices as being a great, innovative company, and making sure that we're recognizing and keeping the people? Because if we don't, and we're going to really struggle to get those people in, and without those great people, we will fail to innovate and fail to do the things that we need to do. It's interesting as we come out of an economic cycle that's not been easy by any stretch of the imagination. And I know it's a little bit more advanced in terms of time in North America than it is in Europe, but there is a real talent crunch. So we're probably as developed nations at somewhere near peak employment for key jobs. There are enough specialized jobs out there that if we could take all of the people who are unemployed and train them into the skills, we still would have jobs available that we couldn't fill for people. There is a real talent crunch out there, and that actually is going to be a real key driver for organizations going forward, that we just can't find the people, and we've got to do more to get more out of the people that we have alongside all of this. So forget innovation as a driver for this. There are other things that sit behind it. The people that do come in, and we know this as well, that whatever you want to call them, the millennials, basically the people that were born in years that make you feel very old, that come into your organization, are, as we know, are expecting to work in very, very different ways. And again, you guys will have heard this 1,000 times, so I won't harp on about it, but people do expect to have a voice, and they don't come in to do a job anymore. They expect to be engaged in the innovation conversation. And so I put forward that it is really time to think about how we're going about this. So what we did was we went forward, and before we decided to put forward this concept of everyday innovation, we did what you have to do, and we commissioned some survey data to go and prove that there was a need to have a different conversation around all of this. And to validate why do we need to have this conversation? Why really is it so important for us to get there? And this was not done by a company that done as Wazoku, as an innovation company and an idea management company. It was done blindly, anonymously, like you have to do. And so the fact that people come out with lots of good data was not because they were being asked by someone with a set agenda behind all of it. And just some of the highlight stats, and I put up the URL earlier, but by all means, it's a free report. It's an interesting little read, so do feel free to go grab it, and the URL will be at the end as well. But just some of the interesting findings from all of this. So looking at entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, a significant percentage, more than I probably expected, of people that we asked. And these are people from across the breadth of organizations. So average employee bases of somewhere in the kind of up to 5,000 and then 5,000 plus in terms of organizations across sectors, across levels of junior to senior, from CEOs down across organizations, in a really significant sample size. Of those, when you take out the executive and the leadership, 72% want to be their own boss. Obviously, the leaders are their own boss. And 79% of them would, if they're not their own boss, want to see their boss more as a mentor and everything else. But more importantly than that, they will leave if they're not going to get all of that. And there is, we know there's significantly low loyalty from lots of people these days. Looking at the innovation question, we've got to get the language right on all of this, because if we don't know where we're starting from and we don't know what we're talking about, then how on earth are we going to move forward with any of this stuff? So most people, more than half, don't really know what innovation means in their organization, or they don't really know how to access it, how does it slot into their corporate goals. And 38% of managers, and that number might seem quite low, but think how many managers you've got in your organizations. Like Honda was spoken earlier. Like the management layer at Honda, God knows how many thousands of people that is. If 40% of them don't think this is part of their job, then actually that becomes quite significant and quite meaningful for the organization. Not because it's not in their job title, that's kind of a whimsical escape route, I think, for why they want to do it. It's actually because they're just an embattled breed within organizations who've got to manage upwards and downwards and have got way too much to do. And throwing innovation on top of them as a job title or other, bless you, is just another thing for them to do, and we've got to make it accessible for them. And these stats go on and on and on. The most important one, I think, here is that what's the impact of all of this? And 3/4 of the people that we spoke said that it's negatively affecting the company's ability to do the things that we want to innovate for, to serve our customers better, to be more efficient in the things that we're doing, to make the workplace a better place to work. 3/4 of the people we asked said all of that. And so there is a need for a conversation. This is important, and it is time to start trying to do things a little bit differently. And not that we're doing lots of wrong things, that's what I said. I think it's trying to understand where can we pull the levers to do things a little bit differently as organizations. So, as I said, if you don't know where you're starting from, then you probably don't know where you need to start focusing on from an improvement perspective. So the other bit of this was to look at, and there are other forms of these things available, but if you're interested, do feel free to come and talk to me about what we do. Being able to measure your starting point is particularly important. And it's only a little bit meaningful, but to that question that Louis asked earlier about engaging with leaders, giving them something that shows that there is a real need to improve, and putting numbers, because all leaders, including me, love a number and a metric and something to go and then tell people that they improved upon, is a really good starting point. So innovation maturity, where are the things that we're failing on at the moment? And then we can start to map all of that. I'm not going to go into these right now. It wouldn't be interesting for you guys as a room of people. But on the whole, you will find that most people, no matter how good they are, I've got pockets actually of all of these happening, but when you aggregate it all together, you're going to sit people mostly down somewhere in the bottom left-hand corner, as you might expect, which is why there's plenty of scope for people like us to come along and lend really good advice around how you can get to other areas. The real point of all of that is there is a need to start focusing on these things. There are lots of things and lots of quick wins and lots of interesting things that you can do. And so for the second part of this presentation, I'll dig into some examples of that and some things that people are doing, and hopefully kind of cordially invite all of you to come along on this everyday innovation journey with me, with us as an organization. When we're looking at this and when we're working with organizations, so most of what I do on a day-to-day basis sits at the bottom of these sort of five strategic pillars. These pillars are the areas that we'll assess organizations against, and that we'll look to work out where we need to turn the dial on for greatest benefit when doing the assessment of innovation maturity. So it isn't like you suddenly get an A rating of everyday innovator on the scale and we pat you on the back and send you off. As I said, some areas you'll be stronger in and some areas you'll be weaker in. All of these dials or all of these strategic pillars are the things that we can look at, and there are components that sit underneath all of these as you take yourself forward. We have some great organizations that we work with, really culturally strong businesses like the BBC, where people turn up to work and a very tiny percentage of them get to do the thing that they all would love to do, which is make new television or media content. The other 90-odd% are administrative staff behind the scenes. Yet actually they all turn up and they love the brand, and they all aspire to want to have some connection to a brand that produces brilliant content. Culturally, therefore, from an innovation perspective, actually, despite the fact that you've got a lot of people that are not far off borderline civil servants, it's a publicly funded business at the end of the day. They can be very creative and very innovative people working in the deepest, darkest depths of that organization who actually have great creative ideas, and we're just looking at ways to try and tap into them. As a good example, some businesses have amazingly strong leadership, but what that means is that but they fail to release that autonomy into the workplace and enable businesses to go on with it. And there are some that really, really struggle with that. And they've tried innovative approaches to try and do things, and we've seen recently businesses like Zappos who have tried the very bold move of injecting a culture of holacracy, no job titles, no hierarchy, kind of failed miserably with all of that, mostly because we're not really ready for that stuff, and I'm not sure we ever will be. But interesting that you've got a leadership that's trying these bold things. The other side of this is that not only do we need to work on the language, we need to work on the balance. And so I'm sure that in the room here, and I'm going to guess that there's lots of people that when we talk about intrapreneurship, think about stuff that's down here and going away and doing exciting things because the day job's a little bit boring, but actually working on a brand new project or a new disruptive thing over here, whatever it might be, is really exciting. That's fine, but if we're going to do this at scale, then that's not possible because only a very small number of people are going to ever have the privilege of doing that and being given the space and the room to fail in all of this. There are lots of people down here on the left-hand side that are doing incremental stuff, and we give them really boring job titles like efficiency managers and operations directors and other things, and give them KPIs and metrics to go off and deliver it. And we don't tell them they're doing innovation, we tell them they're doing efficiency and lean and agile and Kaizen or whatever the buzzword of the 2010s plus is. But it is innovation, it's just a different type of it. What we don't focus very much on is this middle ground, and we never really have a language for it. And don't steal my language, come up with your own. Lots of people have different versions of this. I think there are people from Cisco in the room who call these horizons and have horizon 1, 2, and 3 with it, which is quite nice. We have people that do nows, wows, and pows or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. As long as the staff can associate with them, it's absolutely fine. In terms of what fits culturally for the organization. But having that middle ground of differentiated innovation, as I like to call it, or whatever you want to call it, is really important, and I'll talk about what that means. But getting that balance right and making sure that you don't have something like this where you're trying to balance the wrong things on whatever this awful metaphor is, on a tightrope between two God knows what. So what does this mean, and what is some of the language that we're talking about in this access ground? And the reason I put this section in, and the reason I think it's worth talking about, is that I've heard lots of people, and when we did this in London with Hans, somebody from Shell stood up and said, "That's all great, Simon, but you're never going to get my engineers down. You're never going to get the sort of guys on the ground in the sort of upstream business engaging with the word innovation." And so that's fine, we need to get a different language to get them into it, but they are doing innovation. They're doing loads of amazing things on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at this. But what is it that you really mean when you say you want to do innovation within your bit of the business? And this is what a lot of the stuff that comes out, right? So basically nobody will work on a radical innovation inside an organization. It's such a small percentage of the population that really gets to work on those things when you think they're truly, truly radical. So these are ideas that completely change the business model that we're in. And one day we're making shoes, and tomorrow we're a financial payment system or whatever it is. There are very few businesses that do that. Some of them do it because they have to. Nokia might be a good example. You don't want to be in that situation particularly. But, and maybe they needed to do more. But actually what they really needed to be doing was more of this differentiated stuff. So small steps of customer-centric change over time, of manageable bite-sized scale that's accessible by more of a percentage of the organization, is digestible to leadership because it doesn't take millions and billions of dollars to do it in, and you can do it in the sort of Soviet-style blocks that we need to work in as organizations that we call planning cycles. And you can do this across different teams at scale and measure the results of it so it fits with the politics of what we have to have as organizations. Get the language right, focus on those things, but let the other things happen around the edge of the organization and get that mix right. So how do we do it? I didn't know I was going to have to try and read this on the tiniest screen that was half a mile away, so I was going to focus through. So when we did the event, a few weeks ago, we had a great business, a company called Scriberia. Anyone who's in London, look at them, they're brilliant. Do a live scribing session for us. So they listened to all the feedback. This wasn't me, it was journalists, it was the head of innovation at Cisco, it was, and I'm happy to send this to people if they want a copy of it as well, just let me know. It was the our head of innovation at Waitrose and several others from the world of businesses that we have the privilege of working with, talking around our pillars and how they get enacted within their organizations and some of the successes, some of the challenges, some of the failures that they've had. I'm not going to talk through all of these, but I thought I might just dig through some examples of what people are doing and some of the data that comes out of it. So this into itself, and this is just in the UK. So the fact that there are 40-odd thousand people in a tiny little country like the UK on a monthly basis searching for what is innovation, what does innovation mean, sort of validates some of those points. There's other statistics that I put up earlier. And the reason for that is, and I see this on a daily basis, is Some poor person has just had their manager walk up to them because somewhere down the line their manager walked up to them, and somewhere down the line the CEO walked up to that person and said, we need an innovation manager, go find somebody. And they'll walk away and they'll just give someone the job title and pat little John or Mary on the back and tell them, congratulations, whatever you were doing before, you're still doing that, but now you're the innovation manager as well. And this happens every single day, and we get people calling us saying, I've just been told I'm the innovation manager, what do we do? And so trying to tie this together and try and clarify it, and what do we need to do is where obviously a lot of this stuff comes in. And it genuinely does happen. It doesn't just happen in small businesses, it happens in very large businesses that suddenly creates 15 innovation managers. I was just with a global law firm who just created 6. They took lawyers and said, from now on, you're not billing lawyers anymore, you're innovation managers, get on with it, and come back to us and don't fail. And all of that's really, really pertinent, right, as we go forward. So what do some businesses do? So from a strategic perspective, what they do is they suddenly put innovation alongside the X number of other things on their strategic mission statements that they do, and therefore now organizations do innovation because they've stuck it on a strategy board and told the world that they do it. That's, again, the reality. So we create an innovation manager, and now what we're going to do is we're going to stick it alongside collaboration and openness and transparency, and now innovation's on there as one of our 5, 10, 12, 3 things that we do brilliantly and commit to our people on a yearly basis. I'm not this cynical, really. This is just stuff that we see. But what the strategy needs to do, as I said earlier, from an everyday innovation perspective, is it needs to be absolutely clear to people how the innovation strategy, how your entrepreneurship strategy, how your approach to doing new things is tied to the corporate strategy. And if it's not, then you're really failing quite miserably at this. Because why do we want people to innovate? What do we want them to be doing? Well, we want them doing stuff that's going to be moving the business closer to its overall objective as an organization. And so if people don't understand that and they can't correlate those two things and we can't help them to do it, then we don't have an innovation strategy. And maybe we don't really have the proper corporate strategy either. And so getting those two things tied quite nicely. There are great businesses that do this. They don't do it perfectly, but there are great businesses that do this. Having a leadership that supports culture, and I think the two biggest blockers in all of this are leadership and culture. So forget the other stuff, you can work through it all, and leadership needs to define strategy and everything else. Leadership as the enabler, as the guys who can give the permission to go forth and do these things is critical. Any work that we do in any organization, we will pretty much mandate that this needs to be not just signed off by, but actually backed by the chief exec. For anyone that's studied the very famous Toyota example of very much embedded innovation in a cultural organization, if you want to be a leader at Toyota, you have to have been part of their internal innovation program. You must have run it or at least been a part of that program for a period of time. They deliver well over 1 million ideas across the organization every single year. They're probably the only business on planet Earth that can tell you how many ideas they deliver every single year because everyone else hasn't got a clue. And that's a really interesting stat unto itself as well. So people tell me we don't need more ideas, we don't need these things. They don't know what their starting point is, so how can they possibly know that? They can't measure those things. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to dig into all these, as I said, but I do think the focus on culture and the appetite to risk and the appetite of enabling people to take risk is one that just warrants digging into a little bit further. Can we just play this? This is a very, very, very short little video that is my little metaphor for risk, basically. And it's one of my best friend's little babies.
Can I get a little bit of walking, please, sir?
Okay, ready? Ready for it?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Come on, keep coming. Oh, that's beautiful. Great walking.
So, this is Tristan, by the way, lovely little Tristan, he's probably got another 6 months of grace before he moves away from clap, clap, applaud, applaud, to being basically stuck in the corner and told to stop failing. And it's really interesting, actually, that we give people grace. We give kids grace at a point where they're trying, and it's the point of maximum acceleration as a human being. We learn more in the first couple of years as people than we do, and then all we do after that is we slow right down until we stop and we start going the opposite direction again. Because it's cultural, because we are celebrating trying all these things. It's cute and it's beautiful, but actually it's massively progressive for kids, and we've got to get beyond this need and this incessant kind of push to say, oh yeah, it's okay to fail as long as you don't do it. And then and then put you in the corner for it. So there are some really nice examples of this. This is, you guys will have seen all this stuff anyway, I'm sure, but Fail Forward pushes a lot of this stuff there, but celebrating these things as progressive things, and you won't be able to read this, but there's some really nice things in here that people have done. This is done on Bradstreet's Failure Wall. They've got lots of press coverage and lots of people coming and writing about what they're doing. Anybody can come and write on this, and there are celebrities like Oprah's been in here and other things, but generally staff come in and they can just write little stories of something they tried and something they failed that didn't work for them, and other people can sort of come and contribute to and other things. I was speaking recently at another event in London, and one of the other fellow speakers has had a little token that he handed around, and it basically said, I give you permission to fail, ... basically, that they will give to leaders to hand out across the organization. It's a metaphor. It's not, except for apparently the one person who took the ... and took it to his boss and asked him to sign it for him. He didn't quite understand the metaphor that was there. But generally, I think this ability that is an expressed, but not unexpressed, but actually just an understood thing within an organization that you can, and it is okay to fail, is obviously really important. And I really do like that kind of child metaphor that we celebrate this, we celebrate this, we celebrate this, and then we punish it. And it's all gone. You're not allowed to do those things anymore. It's called being drunk and irresponsible past a certain age. So I'm going to end with just this final thought. Hopefully this has been useful for you guys. And like I said, there's lots of really good case studies for it. I took this from Inc. I think it's a nice one. As I said, I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs. I myself was a corporate person that did okay in the corporate world, but was doing a lot of these things and getting into more trouble than I should have been with an employer. Again, I won't read it, but I think there are some really, really important messages in it. Not least, it is okay to break the rules. It's okay for people to think differently. It's okay for us to do all of these things, and we need to embrace it. We need to do it within process and scale and structure and leadership and management and all of those things that I've said, but it is okay. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the next couple of days. I'm really looking forward to it, and thank you, Hans.